Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast, where we dive deep into the media industry headlines and dissect the digital disruption that diverges the masses into the new media counterculture and away from the media establishment. Here is the king of podcasts.
It doesn't hurt me. Do you want to feel how it feels? Do you want to know that it doesn't hurt me? Do you want to hear about the deal that I'm making? And if I only could, I'd make a deal with God and get him to swap our places, right? Be running up that road, be running up that hill, be running up that building, say if I only could, Kate Bush. And the whole onus of new music discovery, which we talked about last week on the Broadcasters Podcast, which was episode 229. And we're going to roll back into a little bit tonight, episode 230, as we look at the constant examples of new music discovery. And I'm going to continue to go ahead on my rant on how radio needs to play a role. And I'm almost compelled to get some radio personalities on the show to talk about this, if I can get them to come on. Because that's the question I want to have for them. My question is, what would you do today, given the current parameters of corporate radio, if you had the chance to program a station or be a personality on a national format where a personality could actually go ahead and present radio in a way where they don't need to be the arbiters of doing music rotations and playlists that are going to be played continuous. You're not going to hear continuous music all the time on a radio station, because I think radio needs to learn that they need to be a home for new music discovery, for especially the new stations, for them to bring on new artists, talk about them, talk about their music, play the music, and not just be a jukebox, because the jukebox automation idea is done. We need live programming. We need live style programming. We need to actually have a format and not just music just being played for music. And I've been thinking about it a lot because I've been listening to some air checks, and I actually was just thinking about, there was somebody I was watching on LinkedIn, because I had talked about somebody when I was doing some recording for Cannabis Radio today. And one of the guys that was on today, without going into the story, he had the same name as a disc jockey I remember, that I listened to air checks from the days of New York City radio in the 60s and 70s. And I was thinking about the air check I remember listening to in particular. Made me think about that all day. It was a particular air check from a DJ from WOR. It was in 1970. Hell, I was even looking for the songs that was on the air check. Like, there was one song which I really didn't realize was not on Spotify, from a song called from a group called 100 Proof, and it was this group that was with what was it? It was some record company. I think it was a division of Stax Records, and it was this soul song from this group called 100 Proof called "Somebody's Been Sleeping," kind of like the whole Red Riding Hood kind of thing. But it was just this cool song, and I saw that other people did it. I saw Dennis Coffey remade the song. I saw The Main Ingredient remake the song. It was great. This cool little funky, like 70s classic that was a top 10 single on the Billboard Hot 100. So put that out there for you. Now, the thing is, as I went into this song, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm hearing the guy who's got this velvet, amazing voice on the air. It's just soothing. The guy he's got good humor. Way he talks, he's cool, he's hip, he's just got a vibe to him. And when I listened to the guy running through a commercial for some clothing store, because it was on a Saturday morning, and he's just going along. You have commercials in between. You have these songs that are all popping up, and it's all these new songs, by the way. Because this station would also play older songs. Like, they wouldn't just go back to recurrence going back, 5 years, 10 years. They'll go back 20. They'll go back pretty far. Because this particular station, WOR.FM, they played new music. And the music variety was very different, because even Top 40 was very diverse and very wide, which is one of the things that has to be done. And then I listened back and I listened, okay, they have all these songs playing across. And then I heard like a song from Andy Williams. Or then I heard a song from like, I forget who else. Like it might be a Rolling Stones song. Or a song from Sonny James or, Ferlin Husky or something like that. Some odd country song or whatever it is. And then you'd have all these songs playing out. Or like a James Brown song. Or something for Little Anthony and the Imperials. Whatever it is. But they would just kind of play like the doo-wop. They'd play soul. They'd play... is this whole kind of mix that they had. And it was top 40. It was one of the top 40 songs on the charts at that time, plus the recurrence that were going to be played. And that's what they had. And when I heard that, I'm like, why can't this happen here? When BBC Radio 1 does their thing, I know I keep going back to them as a great example, but they are a great example. They're doing interviews. They have contests. They have things going on, certain games, certain things to occupy. Of which the morning shows in every market of radio is tried, it's exhausted, it's the same thing. And the same gossip about the same people. They don't need to be talking about gossip. They don't need to be talking about like all the current event stuff that's like that. Let's get back to the music and focusing on the music. Because even Apple Hits 1, they kind of do that, but they're kind of going with a diverse kind of feel. They're kind of trying to play, like Zane Lowe and all those people, they're trying to play like more of a progressive type of feel. They're trying to go a little bit of a BBC Radio kind of feel where they're going with different music, different styles, but also they like to play a little bit older music. Like it's not a current format altogether. And it's only online, and only if you're an iPhone user can you really kind of easily access it. Like I tried Apple Music and I wasn't much into it, especially on the Android side. It was okay. SiriusXM Hits 1, right? Same thing. It's just kind of okay, but they're playing jukebox. They're just playing song after song after song, and the songs don't matter. But then you need to do things to make the songs matter. You need to actually add importance to the songs. Add some context to them. Whether it's the interviews, whether it's the things that are going on in between. There was something about Casey Kasem and the way he used to present music and how he would let you know about an artist, and you would really get to know this person. And you would get the meaning behind the song. And you would really learn some things. And you learned about news and music. You learned about other things going on in other radio shows and other radio stations at the time. And you would have disc jockeys or honor personalities that could think on their feet, be humble. They could kind of stumble a little bit over their words, but they can go through and they can talk. And they can be casual. And they don't have to sound like they're running off a script. They don't have to record themselves. They can be live and they can hold on to everything that's going on. Look, when I record this program, I'm mostly, unless I have to stop tape for a minute to do something else, for the most part, I'm just recording, 30, 45 minutes on end. If I got to keep talking, I will. So I just let this recorder go, like I would be doing a live radio show. And keeping myself mindful that I want to keep my content good. Keep it mindful that I'm getting an hour of listenership from all of you out there. And I care about every minute that you listen. Because you know why? I'm going to drop some ads in here. And when I drop ads in here, I don't want you to feel too dismayed that I'm going to make sure I have something good to talk about for all of you that are patiently waiting 60 to 90 minutes for the commercials to end so that you can listen to me again and get right back to me without much delay or hesitation. These are the things I think about when it comes to radio. Radio needs to re-identify itself. They need to host things differently. They do not need disc jockeys or honor personalities that have no experience whatsoever. That probably, maybe they go to the shows once in a while, but they're more social media savvy. That should be some of the part. Like you can offer more engagement on social media if you're working with the crowd, but you don't need to dumb down the audience either by dumbing down the engagement and dumbing down what you're talking about. Let your audience realize they're a little bit educated. They're a little bit better than what you expect them to be. To the point where I almost appreciate where National Public Radio or NPR, actually, they do judge, or not judge, they value their listeners and their expertise and their educational level. And they're willing to learn something, and they're willing to understand things. Even though they might be a little bit highbrow and a little bit sanctimonious sometimes, that's okay. But they have a great role in podcasting and radio, and they do a damn good job. And listen, they're able to go and do their own set of programs where they have commercials embedded. And they have things where they have pledge drives of everything like that. And people will sit around for a pledge drive and let them just ramble on for minutes, because if you've got something that's a purpose and you're doing something, you don't have to be completely embedded with music. When you listen to stations back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, you know how many commercials they used to play? They didn't play 3 or 4 songs back to back. Not like they do now. You didn't get to hear, 12 in a row or 18 in a row like we listened to in the 2000s and the late 90s. I mean, they did do that, and they were trying to go and do something where they could try to get more music, pack more music in, which has always been the role of what radio would do. They would pack in more music, less talk, and they would try to keep the same commercial load. But the commercial load doesn't have to be that big either. You can just make the jocks do it. And you make it where you have honor personalities that have real clout. It's not that hard. And you have honor personalities that can be brought in. And oh, by the way, I'll tell you this too. Not every honor personality has to be good looking or young. When we talk about diversity and we talk about checking the boxes, we talk about who should be able to be on radio. Let me just tell you this too. National Public Radio, NPR, I see the people that are hosting shows on there. They're radio friendly like me. And I can appreciate that. They can be whatever background you want. They could be whatever race, gender, culture, anything. The voices are what matter. And if they know what they're talking about, and they're entertaining, and they're good, and they're compelling, and they can keep people engaged and listening in for a longer period of time, rock on. And all these people are broadcasting the stations around the country, hundreds of NPR stations. And they're doing a good job. That's what I'm talking about. Look, talk radio still has their thing where they can do their shtick and whatever. Okay, and I'm not talking about talk radio because that's a different bag altogether. But somehow, some way, those people are just chatting away. However they're doing to placate to the audience they're going after. And they're able to make them sit through 18 to 20 minutes of commercials. Because all those talk shows you hear, especially if it's sports or news talk, all those shows, all those conservative shows, and some people are going to cringe if I brought up the names. Yeah, 42 minutes. Some shows, 38 minutes. I'm serious. Most of the shows I know, because I used to work in WGNO and WBZT, a lot of those shows, 42 minutes. Maybe 44. But 42 minutes with that 6-minute thing in the front for news, which has commercials in it as well. You're right. Another couple of minutes of commercials within it. And news. Might be repetitive from before. And then you have the host. And they can engage you for 15 minutes for that first break. Another, like, maybe, or some shows will just take that long run and then they'll make you break, which is even worse. They're not even splitting up the half hour. Because in that first 24 minutes of the half hour, some shows, especially on the conservative side, they'll take that big chunk, 20 minutes. Then they have their break, and then they're only on for 30 seconds or a minute. And that's it. That's the way they do it. And so they're making you sit through how many commercials between what? 26 minutes after, all the way to 34 after? 8 minutes. With like what? A minute of fluff? So you got that long set at the 6-minute mark, then another 8 minutes, and then honestly, the same thing goes for another 8 minutes at the top. They're doing the same thing music radio is doing. But yet they're able to get people to actually sponsor or patronize those sponsors, and they're able to get the sponsors in there and crowd up their ad inventory. They can fill the slots and the ad block, the spot set. Music radio, they think they can do the same thing. Let's just put 6 minutes in one spot. Another 6, or more. When you think about the fact that they do that, they need to get rid of all that together. Listen, the commercial loads need to be done a different way. We need to get jingles back. We need to get back to letting the disc jockeys actually do commercials. And they should not be recorded. Let them do it live. And you have a number of radio shows that broadcast to multiple markets. Not the way Odyssey does it. Okay, I get what they're doing, but they're also, they are adding some more context when it comes to some information, but they're also just doing bits. They're just doing small segments. They do have interviews with the stars, which is what other stations might not be able to get, which is fine. But they need to get rid of and just get back to the music itself and actually treat the musicians with some respect. Don't just, imagine that this person's... I mean, what about some of these stars that are on TikTok and all of a sudden I don't learn anything about them? Really, when I listen to Scott Mills in the official chart, which comes up tomorrow as I record this guy has taught me more about Lauren Spencer Smith or Gail or Dylan Conrique or Benson Boone or Sam Ryder than I would imagine anybody else does. Like, you're getting real-time information. You're getting to hear Instagram clips. You're getting to hear the things they're doing on TikTok or whatever there might be. Something funny, something interesting, something quirky, whatever. You're learning about where they're going around on tour. You're learning about what they're doing, new albums coming out. There's always information. I mean, when is Scott Mills doing that shit? Listen, it's a difference when the other guy, when they have somebody else on. They had John What was it? The guy at night. I forget his name. He's not that good. But they're using him because Scott Mills is taking vacation because he can get vacation. But the thing is, when that guy has to work off what he has, he's just trying to fill up the void. But Scott Mills has so much information. And an hour and 45 minutes, I learn more about artists. I get a good, 25 songs maybe with the chart? No, maybe like 20 songs of the 40. So we're not getting repetitive songs. We're not hearing the same songs over and over every week. We're hearing all the new songs. We're getting the top 10 intact. Unless something happens. Because now I just heard this week that God Save the Queen, for whatever reason, because of the Jubilee, the 70th anniversary of Queen Elizabeth being queen, God Save the Queen by the Sex Pistols might be the number one song in the UK. Are they going to play that song? I hope so. That'd be funny. So yeah, there's that. But with radio and the new music that's out there, they can make an artist. They can make an artist. They can break an artist. They can let people sample songs. When they talked about last week where Halsey or, Trevor Daniel and all these artists that were not able to get songs out because they can't. You know what it used to be? Payola used to say, you know what? Put that song with some cash, get it to the radio station, let them play it. Somebody's going to listen to it. Don't think I don't know that all these hip-hop stations back in the 90s or in the 80s, that they all used to get vinyl, used to all get mix show stuff, okay? I know those vinyls. Easy to stuff some money in there, stuff an envelope. You're not telling me some of those PDs used to do that? I know they did for sure. And you know what? They did that because there was a lot of music that was breaking. And if you got it to the right people, the same thing with the DJs. You stuff that vinyl. You get it to them and let them sample it in front of a big crowd. Somebody's going to hear it. And it goes viral. That's how it used to be viral. And it's still not as easy to go and do that on TikTok or Instagram and all these, because the algorithm is still going to be something you have to work through. You still have to be somebody, or have to do something ingenuous, something that's really quirky or weird, or just something that is an eye worm, and it's going to catch your attention, or an earworm. It's going to catch your attention. You're going to hear something in there. Somebody might just catch on it. Because remember, some of the songs that get caught on that become viral is because one of the major influencers dances to it or uses it in a video. And when the song gets released, somebody finds it and they discover it. Oh, let me try this track out. 15 seconds. Okay, let's try this. Now, Stranger Things might have had Kate Bush's song in the first episode of the new season, but people had to have responded back. Like, you don't just go. First of all, there's going to be streaming of that song on all the streaming services. That's how you get that song generated. The song now gets service to radio. This is an older song. People will probably listen to it if they're older. So you got that for you. But then you move along here and you say, okay, radio becomes late to the dance. And when you're trying to look at what's going on with what they want to do when a song gets viral and how they try to get the word out, if you can get a Charlie D'Amelio or an Addison Rae or somebody else to do something with the song, and they do something with it, and then it breaks like that, you're just adding on to it. And TikTok or whoever did it uploaded a chunk of Kate Bush is running up that hill, and that was enough because everybody noticed the song and like, okay, it's already an earworm, and people on TikTok will take trending music to help on the algorithm to get their videos noticed and watched and monetize them. TikTok is the perfect storm of it, and that's what they do with this. When they get to that point, they can build upon it. Radio could get the same effect, because if you heard something on the radio, then you could do something where you could move along and you could say, you could instantly do something the same way in radio, put that clip on social media, then let's get something going. Why that doesn't happen, why these radio shows, why they don't do something like that, where they take a song, play it, and then they go ahead and put it out there. Like, there should be TikTok videos of these DJs, of these on-air personalities, playing a song into the mix, and they're like previewing a song. Hey, I'm for this in this station. We're playing this song right now. Do you exit or respect it? Do you like it? Do you love it or hate it? You know, hot or not? Let's put the vote out there. Let's put a poll on TikTok. Let's put a poll on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. Let's do something with that. It's not that hard to do. Because some stations can just pick up a song and say, hey, I just heard this. I just got to play it. What do you think? And you know it's something that nobody's heard before. If it's a local artist, there used to be like the local shows that would play music and showcase new music, and then those songs would go regional and then sectional and then go all the way around the country, around the world. That could happen too. You would think with everything going on right now, it would be easier to get some song that's randomly out there to become a hit. But sometimes it's not that way, because the algorithms, you still have to manipulate through it to get there. Radio can still be the quick run into viral. Radio can still be the place where new music comes in viral. And what you do is, you're not making people listen to radio just to hear the same songs over and over. No, you're the new place for new music, because you're going to break new songs regularly. Okay, here's a new song to discover. Check it out. Call to action. You see how people are going to respond to it. And then that report goes to the record label. And if the song goes well, then you keep playing it. Take the requests. Call out. There's your research. You don't have to do audience metric testing, none of that crap. But you take the song, and then you put it out there, and let these stations be the first ones to break it. Or do you want to let these TikTok people the ones that help break these songs? Music's being broken by movies and TV. I got to talk about that in a minute, because that's part of the list of things I got to go and talk about tonight. So you got that going for you. All these things. So let's get into it. Let's talk about Kate Bush, the latest person to come into the play. Kate Bush, who was like, it's amazing. And now people are looking at her in her catalog. They're going to go back to Wuthering Heights. They're going to go back to all her stuff. Vogue talked about it. If you read a book that might be formative time in your life, or a film you hold especially close to your heart, and due to a social media trend or a hit TV show, the same cultural artifact is suddenly everywhere, and people were professing their surprise at how brilliant the artist was who truly made it is. And even though you know it's not the nicest thing to feel, your first instinct is, where have you all been? So the iconic British singer-songwriter Kate Bush has become a Gen Z sensation because her 1985 track Running Up That Hill was on a recent episode of Stranger Things on Netflix. So one of the main characters realizes that playing your favorite song will ward off one of the Upside Down's most nefarious monsters. The song shot to the top of the U.S. iTunes charts. The teenage fan base of the show took to Twitter and TikTok to post about the new musical discovery from decades past. And others, however, notably longtime Kate Bush fans of a certain generation, sat through many decades of radio silence from a musician notorious for taking long hiatuses and doing minimal press, rolled their eyes. How can you not know about the genius of Kate Bush already? Look, I didn't really know much about Kate Bush until I watched the Top of the Pops Story of 1979 documentary and seeing Wuthering Heights, and just blown away at this young, pretty woman that with this voice of hers that's just out here. The 1978 breakout track was Wuthering Heights, the piano-led ballad with allusions to Emily Bronte, bonkers key changes, and infamously acrobatic vocals while watching a music video channel as a kid. Yeah, because the song, I think, was on MTV, right? And she is trained in contemporary dance. She's twirling, waving her arms through a spectral white mist and a floaty batwing dress, her eyes wide with urgency. Yeah, because she was wearing a black dress in front of this like organ kind of thing on top of the pops. It was just something crazy. But she was compelling. And what a novelty song. But this was the breakout for her. And then everybody knew who Kate Bush was. I mean, I heard about Kate Bush. I never got to see her until I saw that documentary about, 7-8 years ago? And then has been out of the limelight for a while. And this Vogue writer says that I'd be a prime candidate to turn my nose up at the fact Gen Z has discovered the music of one of my heroes through a teen drama, but on the contrary, I'm delighted. We all have to make those discoveries sometime and somewhere, even if that's through a Netflix show. Gatekeeping our favorite artists serves nothing but our own egos. Plus, where to start than one of her greatest songs and videos of all, Running Up That Hill. And the thing was, I didn't even know it was her. Running Up That Hill, I didn't hear that from her. I heard it from Meg Myers, which was a couple of years ago, an alternative that really stuck out. And then there was another dance mix from Anima is the artist from this year, or 2021 to 2022. And I heard Running, and I had the Meg Myers track sampled. And I was like, wow, that song is powerful. And now I know it was Kate Bush. I didn't know. But I must admit, it's very impressive. And that song fit very well with what they were doing. And it was just a time where albums were just a different story, too. Imagine if you had albums that you could also play back like they used to back in the day on radio. Because her albums were also something else. That, even this lady right now is really, you could tell she really loves it. She says, given the feelings of recognition I've found in Kate Bush's music over the years, from her tribute to the love of the gay couple living in secret in an apartment building, is 1978's Kashka from Baghdad, to the sheer euphoric rush I feel in listening to 1989's The Sensual World, an ode to sybaritic pleasure inspired by Molly Bloom's soliloquy and James Joyce's Ulysses, to the dulcet vocals of this woman's work, which never fail to bring a tear to my eye. Why would I want to deny that to others? So there's more to bring up about that, but I'm really fascinated by that. And so, like I said, that there are some songs that can be timeless, and there's one. And this is from her album, the 1985 album Hounds of Love, that made headlines. The Spotify streams of the song have risen by 153%, topped the iTunes chart, trending on TikTok and Twitter, and the song only ever reached number 3 in the UK charts previously. This past week, number 8 on the UK chart. No, number 8 in the US. And I believe it went to number 5 in the UK singles chart. And could go up this week. It could go up. Because I know it hit top 10 and now all of a sudden, here we go. Twitter users were quick to poke fun of the story. Some expressed dismay that people were first hearing Bush's music via a TV show in 2022. Others, the shocked Stranger Things fans would have that they investigate Bush's more recent releases. The overall sentiment was an eye roll. How lame that these people weren't already Kate Bush fanatics. In America, she wasn't that big of a star. So the Duffer Brothers, I give them credit for all of a sudden picking this song of anything and saying, okay, in the UK, she was big deal. Okay. In the late 70s and 80s, she had mainstream success in the UK, becoming the first British solo female artist to top the UK charts and the female artist to enter the album chart at number 1. Her music seems eccentric and easy to parody, but she maintains a mass appeal. Yeah. She was a big performer over there, and that's an old song, and it's holding up. An 80s song. You didn't pick anything from like some traditional 80s movie. You picked an 80s song like this, which I guess you would have found like watching, well, I don't think 120 Minutes was on by that point on MTV. But maybe they played this video and people might remember it. Or the Duffer Brothers might have just learned about the song from their own libraries of whatever they can find on Spotify or whatever they use. And they found it out. It's incredible. So, with that said, Consequence writes about this and says that the triumph of this song and Stranger Things bringing it to life again reminds us of the joy of discovering music through film and TV. And this is from Liz Shannon Miller. The song over the Memorial Day weekend reached the top 10 in Apple Music in 34 different countries. Also becoming one of the most Shazam songs of the week and permanently stuck in every viewer's head. Yes, it's an earworm for me right now because all I can think about right now is and I do. And the idea is that they say that this song has a huge impact because it's not just a casual needle drop. It saves a girl's life. So Sadie Sink's character Max is seen listening to the song early in the season, and when she gets targeted by the malevolent demon nicknamed Vecna, she nearly succumbs to his attack until her friends use the song to bring her back. And the sequence in which she breaks free from the attack blends the Bush track with an epic score is perhaps the high point of the entire season. And so they go on to say, in the fervor of our viewers either discovering or rediscovering Running Up the Hill, there were a few snide comments about the kids today needing a damn TV show to help them discover great artists. But especially as the ways in which people discover music started to decline. When was the last time you listened to a radio station? My point exactly. Because she only says this because that's where people used to go for new music discovery. And radio needs to take that as a hit. They need to take the criticism and understand you corporate hedge fund, or to be private equity funded leeches. You are doing a disservice to everybody in the country and doing a disservice to radio as an institution for over 100 years by running and operating the stations as you do now with limited support, with little creative input or very little creative control to the people that are helping to create compelling content. All you're doing, you're taking people that are just reading liners for you. Hey, look for this on our Instagram page. Look for this. Text us here. Subscribe here, whatever. You're just getting people just to plug. You're getting people that are just going to simply do what they're being told for little money. They're not doing the right thing with radio. But my point. While being included in a movie or TV show soundtrack isn't the primary goal of any musical artist, the way music and cinema work together can give these songs a new resonance for audiences. Wayne and his pals headbanging to Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. They're talking about Wayne's World. Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore going intimate to the Righteous Brothers' Unchained Melody. Edward Norton and Helena Bonham Carter watching the world crash down to the Pixies' Where Is My Mind? And that was in Fight Club, by the way. And so these are the things you consider about new music discovery and how people will still go out to listen for new music. So the thought process of radio, they think, oh, people don't want to hear new music. You're wrong. And by the way, that's a younger audience discovering Kate Bush. Radio could have done that a long time ago. Well, you know what? They don't play her songs. Do they? And who's going to play Kate Bush songs now? Huh? Who do you think's playing that right now? If I look at the media-based chart right now, is it even going to be on here? Is Running Up That Hill going to even be on the chart? I'm looking 50 to 40. No. I'm looking from 40 to 30. No. I'm looking, and I don't see it. The newest chart for the week ending June 13th. Let me look. Can I find Kate Bush on here? Nope. I can find Leah Kate finally on the chart. That's good. But no. One of the most popular songs right now among a younger generation. And then you have the older generation that will remember Kate Bush because they might have been pretty much trying to get themselves out there noticing what's going on. Like, you have people paying attention to music because they're listening on streaming or they're watching Netflix or they're hearing about Netflix and Stranger Things because they've heard about this show for years now. And all of a sudden, this song pops in and like, oh, now we know what it is. So think about that. And you ask yourself, oh, wow. And all of a sudden, you realize, okay, radio could have been part of that. But they keep missing the boat. Do you want to be relevant to a younger audience, or do you want to just satisfy an audience that's increasingly declining and getting tired of you? Do you really want to be that? Is that what you think you're going to become? Is that the best you want to be? I'd like to think you want to do better than that. This is why I'm really glad to have this music discovery conversation here on the Broadcasters Podcast, because it gives me a chance to thump at radio. And I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep having reasons to thump at radio. I love radio. Podcasting's Radio 2.0. Podcasting should have complemented as on-demand audio with radio, but it doesn't. They both operate separately. And when you can tell a radio show is being done as a podcast, you can tell the difference. You can tell they're just repurposing it, or just putting a show that they're not even putting the full effort into because they're being forced to do a podcast along with the other content they're already doing, with some morning shows working 4 or 5 hours, and the amount of prep they have to do for those shows of the same stuff over and over. Nothing extra new or special or funny. Pretty monotonous, tedious, or whatever. They're just filling space. And let me just tell you like this too. Unless you have a really good sound system in your car or on your headphones, I mean, you have to hope that you have a good sound coming onto your radio, because I hate to say it, man, I try to listen to my car sometimes. We know that the radio stations in terrestrial, FM and AM, they don't come out that loud. Like, compared to the loudness we can get with the compression and the equalization and the amplification of our phones or our Bluetooth systems to listen to music, especially Spotify. Like, I have music set at a certain level, and I have to set the level up an extra 5 or 6 notches on my volume to get at the same level as the music on radio. And even then, it's inconsistent across the board. And even then, the music sounds flat because the compression on all these stations don't sound good, because they don't care about that now. They don't make it a point to kind of let the audio, they don't let the Optimod 8300s get a little bit more oomph and kind of over-compress the music to kind of give the station a thump. They used to do that back in the day. They don't do that now. But yeah, that used to be a thing back in the day. But they don't do that anymore. That used to be a thing that everybody talked about, and it was a really important thing they used to do. Orban Optimods. I remember the compressors all these stations have that, you know what, if you just adjust them right, you make them sound great. But they don't do that. I mean, I still think about one of the stations that I was helping out when I was helping my friend out with a couple of AM stations with FM translators. I remember the gospel station out in Belle Glade. I remember the guy that used to run the station there. He worked on the compressor to make the music, especially gospel music, to make it thump so loud and to be so compressed that the music sounded good for AM, because he, along with the way that transmitter used to run, he could make that thing get a little bit over compressed, come out running hot, and it would sound good because the compression would still come out right for it. And there's a perfect science to that some engineers used to do, but now they don't do that anymore for whatever reason. And it's a shame. So now into a story from Vulture. We talked last week about how stars like Halsey, FKA Twigs, and Florence Welch, among them, were complaining a lot about their labels forcing them to make TikToks. If you want the whole story, please refer back to 229, the episode 229 of this program. Last week, I talked all about it extensively. As people spent the early part of the pandemic staring at their phones instead of flocking to concerts, the short-form video social media platform upended music discovery and gave unknown musicians a path to enormous audiences and allowed them to burst into the mainstream on the backs of their TikTok hits. And now you have songs from TikTok that always get their way outside of an album bomb. They're able to make their way onto TikTok, right? So when I see Until I Found You, I think it's a song from Steven Sanchez, or JNR Choice To the Moon, or Sunroof. Like, you're seeing all those songs now all of a sudden making their way up, and they're getting viral. Well, that's what we go into. It's a story as old as the music industry itself. No name musician gets big overnight, lands a record deal, but until recently, it's been hard just to say how big and how overnight. And there was a documentary that Vox put together, which was We Tracked What Happens After Songs Go Viral. And although the platform is clearly a dominant force in new music discovery, they found that streaming is increasingly still overwhelmingly dominated by legacy artists. And since these established acts are now competing for the same eyeballs as their lesser-known colleagues on TikTok, it's getting harder and harder for the latter to break out. So what happens after you go viral on TikTok? Well, there's an episode of Switched on Pop that talks about that, which is a good show, by the way. A decent podcast, I must say. So if you want to catch that, you can go and catch that and check it out for yourself. And that's Charlie Harding and Nate Sloan, who actually host Switched on Pop. And I'm glad to go and see that story pop up there, and I'll give them a shout out. That's a great podcast. I definitely, if you want to learn about music, they're very intricate and very detailed. And they might get to some songs I don't really care for, but I know they do a pretty good job. And their current episode is on. So your song went viral on TikTok. What's next? So I'm going to listen to that episode because I haven't listened to them in a while. But they're fascinating. And if you want to learn about certain trends and certain music coming out, they break it down to the note. The note, the verse, the stanza, the chorus, the pre-chorus, all of that. They're really good at that stuff. And they give you the whole context behind it. It's really fascinating. Some real musicology going on there. Now, when it comes to music creation and behavior, and I think New Music Discovery has a lot to say about that, Music Business Worldwide spoke with Andrea Gleason, the Chief Executive Officer of Believe-owned DIY distribution company TuneCore. And now they're doing a thing where they're introducing new unlimited release pricing plans. This is a place where people can go and get songs uploaded to streaming platforms, multiple streaming platforms. There you go. So now, Andrea mentions that she's a lifelong fan and lover of music, but not for the music industry. Her background is in retail, and she was number 3 in the e-commerce department of a major department store where they took shopping online and grew from the ground up to an over $300 billion business. Now, she's talking about taking a close look at our independent artists and labels embarked on a deep dive into what they need to be successful. And they conducted extensive research through focus groups and surveys. And the studies, and there was a common thread that emerged that was change. Music creation has changed, fan behavior has changed, and therefore artists' need for digital music distribution have changed too. Today's artists are focused on constant creation and keeping fans engaged. And also, it's control. Indie artists want to control their own artistic fate and to manage the way their careers progress. And self-releasing artists are creating music way more frequently than ever before, and they should. Gone are the days where release strategies are directly tied to shelf space and physical manufacturing constraints. Now it's consumed digitally, the music today, from an endless virtual aisle. As such, successful release strategies have shifted from doing an EP or an album per year to releasing singles more often and more regularly. This allows indie artists to take full advantage of all the channels at their disposal to animate their releases and engage with potential fans. From teasing a release to encouraging pre-saves and celebrating streaming milestones on Instagram and TikTok, to sharing the story behind a song or posting a lyric video on YouTube, the digital platforms have one thing in common. The algorithms reward constant music creation. And with each release, an artist creates a new opportunity for fans to engage with their music. And today, the cross-pollination between social media and streaming platforms is directly fueling music discovery and fandom. They don't need the radio. They don't even need television. They don't even need MTV. We don't have a music video channel per se that is putting out viral music and people are watching it and consuming, and all of a sudden that makes a song popular. That doesn't happen anymore. Because nobody's putting the effort towards those entities anymore. They don't want to. It doesn't matter. She goes through some examples here. And as we close out, she talks about the new plan. And she feels like consistent creation will be the norm in the future. She's not the only one. Daniel Ek, Spotify co-founder, who just said recently at the, I believe it was at MAU, the mobile convention going on in Las Vegas, he actually made the point that he expects that by 2030 they'll have a billion subscribers. Or at least a billion people subscribe to the app. Maybe at a free or premium version, but it doesn't matter. He says, quote, the artists today that are making it realize that it's about creating a continuous engagement with their fans. It's about putting the work in, about the storytelling around the album, and keeping a continuous dialogue with your fans. The rise of this constant creation, she concludes, is along with the growth of indie artists in control of their careers, shows no signs of slowing, and the companies in the space that embrace how music creation, promotion, and consumption has changed will rise too. Record labels are going to be left behind. Radio stations are going to be left behind. The arbiters of music for decades are being left behind in the dust to the digital disruption. They're doing nothing about it. Do you understand? Do you realize the severity of this and how important this is to be paying attention? Radio. I'm trying to talk to you with constructive criticism. I love you guys in terms of what the legacy of radio is. It's what I was inspired to do. But when you continue to go ahead and drop the ball like you do now, with only a handful of enterprising program directors out there that are actually trying to do justice, but they only have so much of a market to cover. They're trying. I mean, damn it, I must say this too. One of the stations I can appreciate that they're trying, and they're trying to do something different that's out there. Island 106 is a great example. They are WILN in Panama City Beach, Florida. Their station, when I listen to them, they do a thing where they let you pick songs. Okay? You can actually pick which songs are available on that you want to go and listen to and actually watch. So the insiders that are on listen to the station, they have this thing called Music Insider. And when you go into that, you're able to go into here and you can say, okay, I want to be able to go ahead and have certain songs I can get played. Right? And so when I go into this, they look at it and they say, okay, here's all the songs they have right now. And they let people choose what songs to choose from. What songs that should be played. And they go through that. And they make this whole choice here. And it's a great little thing that they do. Okay, for instance, all right. They show you the songs that you can pick from right now. At the moment, Sunroof is being played. That's the Tick-Tock song featuring Nicky Yor. That song right now is in there. Your other songs that say tell us what to play, they're showing immediately Tyga and Doja Cat's Freaky Deaky, Stay by the Kid Laroi and Justin Bieber, Charlie Puth's Light Switch, Megan Thee Stallion and Dua Lipa's Sweetest Pie, and SZA's I Hate You. And if you go farther into the songs, you can look back even farther. Like if you look at some of the songs they have available, you can look for Bam Bam for Camila Cabello, Avril Lavigne and Black Bear, Love It When You Hate Me, Kygo and Dancing Feet, Anita's Boys Don't Cry, Fingers Crossed, Lauren Spencer Smith, Baker Grace, Midnight Thoughts, Tate McRae, She's All I Want to Be, Dove Cameron's Boyfriend, 5 Seconds of Cover, Complete Mess. If I keep going here, Young Blue featuring Kehlani's Beautiful Lies. Blast featuring Ty Dolla $ign and Ticket, Chosen. These are all not top 40 songs. It's not on your typical pop station. They are changing it up. Then you go to one right now, Post Malone on the Weekend, and Bayhol's Numb Little Bug. The Love Kills Theory with This Thing. Fior, Let Me Go. TSW featuring Ava Max D'Amato, Who We Are. Oliver Tree, Life Goes On. Like, they just have such a mix here of songs you can pick from. And some songs that are very popular on streaming that, okay, let's see if anybody wants to hear it. Some that have been out there for a while. And they say, okay, let's see if anybody on this insider they go to the website, they try to pick certain songs. Let's see if they actually pick something they already wants. And they all pick the same one. And if certain people pick the song, and then the song gets played, and then people start wanting to listen to more, well, let's go for it, right? And I'm sure there's other people that do the same thing, but I really like that idea. It's enterprising. At least you're trying to do something with your station to get people to listen to it. Because at least with that example, you're trying to do something to get your audience engaged. 'Cause I'll tell you, if I tried to go through and look at what they do without doing that, right? If I look at their current market right now, the last ratings they have. Well, first of all, WILN is not even listed in the rating system for Nielsen. They don't even show that. But what we also see is from this list, no top 40 stations are even on the list among the top 10. They're not even on here when you look at that, which is surprising. And I can look back and see if anybody else has anything about it, but I'm pretty sure they don't. I'm even right now, I'm trying to look where they might have that list, because there's a few places I can go to look for the ratings. I'll look real quick while I'm doing this, because I'm pretty sure stations like that, because some of the stations that are doing it, they're a small market. They don't have the money to pay $30,000 a year to be listed every month or whatever there is to be listed on the Nielsen ratings. They don't have the kind of thing for that. Or even, what's the other one that they have? I forget the other rating system they got. I forget now. But you can't even find that because nobody's able to get up there to get that, okay? So if I look for... If I try to look for the market... Oh, Eastland, that's right. Eastland's the other one I haven't heard about much. So if I even go ahead and look for market 220, which is Panama City, for that station. Okay, WILN, among the stations they have a 5.6 rating. And compared to the rest of the market, let me tell you what they have. So, and this is a small market station, by the way, right? There's a 13 share for a country station that's run by iHeartMedia. Or an urban AC that has an 8.1. Well, actually, no. Let's go to the more current ones. That's right. No, that's the spring 2020. That's what we have of the ratings. Okay. When you look at that, because all the other ratings for some of these other stations, they don't bother to subscribe to the Nielsen anymore. They just can't afford it, right? But in spring 2020 at the time, and they were doing the Music Insider thing at this point, there's a rock station for iHeartMedia that's 6.8. So this is an older audience. But what about your younger audience? There are a couple of stations that are in the market, but one station among all of them would actually be placing fifth in the market would be WILN, because at least they have new music. And what they're doing is a way to get people to listen to the station. They're not going to overpower the other stations because the bulk of the radio audience is older. But at least they're doing something. And with what they've been doing with that Music Insider idea, with just letting the music being picked by the fans, probably does better. So keep that in mind. Now, there's a couple other stories I wanted to bring up before I wrap things up. And I didn't get a chance to go through all this, but I'll quickly just run through a couple things in the last few minutes. Quartz did a story about what the future podcast will be like. I want to run through that real quick. Of course, with me, I should be able to say something. There are more than 800,000 active podcasts, and making one as new as simple as buying the right equipment and finding a quiet space to record. But that's where the simplicity ends. As podcasting becomes big business, industry now has decisions to make about how much data it collects from listeners, how important hosts are to the experience, and who will have the resources to survive. To making podcasting profitable, we have to kill some of what is great. But that's for those that need to get monetized. Listen, I monetize this show. Do I make a whole bunch of money off of it? Probably not. I do okay. I mean, I did enough to go and upgrade my microphone to something better, right? I did do that. At least I did that. But if I look at what I've made in terms of what I made for this show, I don't make a whole lot. And if I wanted to look at it, I know I don't make that much, and that's okay. I'm not worried about that too much. I mean, if I just look at year over year right now, I know I didn't do that much. Okay, like last 12 months, yeah, I've done okay. I've done all right. Let me look back here and see if I can put myself back a little bit farther just to get a full breadth of what I've actually done. So, I mean, this year, 51. I mean, compared to last year, I'm making about a third of what I was making last year. But I'm not worried about trying to make a living off of this. Like, I make money off of podcasting because of my full-time commitment. But we have to do it a different way. We get sponsors and things like that. That's how you are supposed to go and monetize. But these shows are monetizing just on the dynamic ad insertion or some other things they try to do. Maybe some Patreon, some subscription models, things like that. So they go through and they're talking about this, but, talking about the serial podcast and how it went viral, the history of podcasting, the evolution of podcasting. And they ask somebody here on this interview the challenges of building a successful podcast. So if you're going to extract a lot more data, you need to pay for a bunch of services that are going to give you little pieces of the picture, and then you put it all together. So you have to be able to how to find your podcasts. Some curation going on in the places where you might go to listen to a podcast. So you might listen to something you see on top because it's on top. It's like a Google search. But you might be listening to a podcast that was put together with some thought and in a studio, and you're probably listening to higher quality podcasts because behind the scenes, you might have a company that hosts a podcast. You're going to have companies that are analyzing some of the data you can get from podcasts. There's stuff be happening behind the scenes. Ads read as part of the script. They were there forever, baked in. And now you have ads being inserted when you download the podcast. Depending on what information exists to you, they're going to place an ad of a product you're more likely to buy. And if you listen to the podcast 3 days from now, it's going to be a different ad. So it's very different. And then he talked about Spotify's role in the podcasting world. It doesn't make a lot of money off of music, and podcasting emerges as a way for them to make money. And they don't have to pay royalties. And they talk about podcasting making money. Yes, it does. We're proof positive. The future of the industry, they talk about saying that it's not hard to imagine a podcast bubble popping. There's not a bubble. What you'll see is it'll become more like a regular industry with big players and less niche and quirky. As long as there's people that are able to go ahead and pay the money to go ahead and get their podcast up somewhere, or they can have an anchor that'll take care of them that way, it doesn't matter. Because any of these podcasts, as long as the server space is available, these people can go out there and continue to put their content up there and be noticed. It's still going to be an affordable platform. I really think that part. Especially when they have ads allowed, that's what you're going to be able to get with. So, keep that in mind. I talked about, and I was going to bring it up this week, and I did it right now, the media industry and entertainment industry were actually in front of the DOJ and the FTC and the Federal Trade Commission in the hot seat. The highlights, they said, were it was a listening tour focused on the media and entertainment industry. This was back in April 27th. I didn't bring this up, but I thought there were a few things that should be brought up. Concerns that they had were the effectiveness of the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice use of consent decrees and settlement agreements in regulating anti-competitive content. Since the 90s, the use of consent decrees and settlement agreements to resolve litigation by both the DOJ and criminal and civil contexts, and separately by the FCC, have been widespread. In recent months, the agencies have offered 2 reasons to why they intend to litigate more cases. If successful, first, litigation will prohibit anti-competitive mergers, full stop, without any compromises. Second, they'll allow the agencies to advocate the courts in favor of their views on how the antitrust laws ought to be interpreted, and if they succeed, will help them develop the law. A third stated unconsequence would be to heighten the deterrence effect for parties contemplating consolidations that raise potential anti-competitive concerns. So I'm all in for this. If they're considering to put more regulations in, if the FTC and DOJ will do what the FCC will not do, let's go for it. And at the media entertainment industry, they need to keep a kibosh on all this media consolidation that's going on right now. I like that. Let's take control of that. I'm actually in favor of that. Those are some of the things they're reading now. It's just a listening tour, but that's what I thought was very important out of that. And also, I was going to bring up Jeff Saganski, talking about the TV business model. I thought he brought a few things to light that were very important. We're in a golden age of content production and the dark age of creative profit sharing. Now, he was former president of CBS Entertainment and Sony Pictures Entertainment and former CEO of TriStar Pictures and Paxson Communications. And he referred to the brutally unfair and ridiculous deals writers, directors, producers, and actors are being forced to sign. Employed by Netflix, Amazon, Disney, and Warner Brothers, among others, the deals allow for shows created today to live on 50 years from now, be licensed and relicensed, and seen in every corner of the world in a way that the digital revolution is now making possible. And the creators get paid just once up front, 10 or 20% more than your usual producer fee, and will never get paid again for all those billions of views, all that relicensing revenue, all that advertising revenue that was embedded. And he talks about over the past decade, over $220 billion of global content, 560 scripted series in 2021 alone on U.S.-based platforms. He says this should be the greatest time in the history of our business to be a producer. But in my 47 years in our business, I don't think there is a more rotten time to be a producer in terms of being paid fairly for the work you are doing. And that's where he talked about the profit sharing and all that. He talked about the financial syndication role, and where indie powerhouses like MTM, Viacom, and companies like Aaron Spelling, Stephen J. Cannell, and Norman Lear, and other factors made show ownership increasingly valuable. With the rise of cable in the 80s, by 2010, successful series were making $1.5 million and more in profit per episode. And then Netflix came in and dropped the bomb on the business. Then net neutrality and initial willingness of TV studios to license their content to Netflix for modest fees. Streaming quickly took hold, but traditional media companies soon switched and focused on their own direct-to-consumer platforms in face of a dwindling linear TV universe as a result of an accelerating cord cutting. Of the 7 original studios in Hollywood, now 6, all but Sony, are tied to a streaming platform owned by Disney, Warner Brothers, Discovery, Paramount, and NBC Universal. Yeah. He says these studios are part of big walled gardens where the main masters they serve are their streaming arms. And somehow they all have quickly adopted by Netflix's production model, demanding to own 100% of whatever is produced by Netflix studios by buying out in perpetuity, in most cases, the producer's back end up front. And by the way, one of the major executives in Disney just got fired because he wanted to try to keep the original linear model when the parent company for Disney, Bob Chapek, said, no, streaming is first. And then he brought on somebody that was trying to still focus on linear traditional programming. Nope. Just telling the truth. He also even said about how he dares the talent agencies that have to go to the Justice Department and Congress to argue against the anti-competitive behavior. Not an early task getting all these disparate groups together, but this may be the only way to level the playing field, which is why I mentioned that DOJ FTC speaking tour back in April. Mr. Saganski is making some points, and he is sounding the alarm. And I will continue to sound the alarm for radio as long as they are behind the 8 ball trying to get themselves back into relevancy. They don't have to go the route of linear TV or movie theaters. They can actually do something to keep themselves relevant, because they can be an integral part of music, an integral part of entertainment, an integral part of bringing diversity, equity, and inclusion to media. Okay, I'll leave it there. That's the Broadcasters Podcast for this week. Thanks for listening in, as you always do. By the way, if you haven't had a chance, I do a Wrestling is Real podcast. If you're into professional wrestling, I have that show. I do it every week. I also have my new series, Depraved and Debaucherous. I do a new episode for that this week. Look for it all at kingofpodcasts.com, or you can find links over at broadcasterspodcast.com. So you can go ahead and read through all the articles that I've talked about here on the show, and you can find all past episodes, and find all the social media links, find everything you need to find out about yours truly. Until next week, remember that content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.
Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast. Find all the links to subscribe to the show by going to broadcasterspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out the King of Podcasts wrestling program, the Wrestling is Real podcast, exclusively at wrestlingisreal.com.